हमारे a very warm welcome to all our friends, सब साथियों को भी जिंदाबाद। तो ये we organized this session at very short notice because Soumyata was traveling and we were also not very sure अगर कर पाएंगे कि नहीं. But then we thought कि we should try at least as like a warm up session. और उसके बाद we plan to do other sessions as well. In which सौम्या जो है अभी COP-30 में जो हम लोग ही इज जॉइनिंग अस लाइव वहां से he and also other representatives who are over there, they might be able to join us during the next few days as well. So we will try to plan upcoming sessions as well. तो ये सेशन का मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव था कि वी विल जस्ट ट्राई टू डिस्कस एंड हियर फ्रॉम सौम्या अ बिट कि व्हाट आर वी एक्सपेक्टिंग फ्रॉम COP-30 and also what are the maybe kind of challenging parts of COP-30, because as you all know this is being known matlab this has been advertised as the implementation COP matlab तो जो COP में अभी मतलब इतना जो decisions we have taken all this while previously, how exactly is this being converted into action, how much of it is being converted and how much is stuck in the process. So it's a very important COP in that way. Also, जैसे सौम्यदा share की, it's happening in a very significant location, आपका Amazon forests, which again is one of the most famous rainforests in the world for all of us. So lot of things attached to this COP, lot of expectations, of course, lot of hope also. And Soumyada is someone who's been going to the COPs repeatedly, so he will also be able to tell us how maybe this is thoda sa different from the previous COPs. So I will not take too much more time. I think we have also a nice number of participants हम लोग के साथ. So handing over to Soumyada, we can start. We can, Soumyada, if you're fine, maybe like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour.
25 minutes, 26 minutes, I'll try to. Just give me a reminder. By around 22, 23, give me a reminder so that next 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, I'll wind up.
Perfect.
And then we can have questions, answer, discussions, whatever.
Hanji. And I did not... sorry, just one more second. I did not really introduce Soumyada formally or NACG, which is organizing this. So I'll just do that. I thought maybe many people know, but there can be people here who are not aware. NACEJ is आपका National Alliance for Climate and Ecological Justice, which is part of the larger NEPM. And Soumyada, of course, is a very active founding member of both the platforms and also of Mosam, another platform that has been working very long on climate and the science behind climate change. And we have many people who have joined us who are also part of both these platforms. So looking forward to entertaining and yes, insightful session. Thank you, Soumyada. We can see that you are sweating over there. So sorry about
that. Can't help it. There, Acha, the question is, should it be plainly in English or Hindi English mix kare? What is preference?
I am not very sure. Stella, what do you feel from the participants who are here?
Mixed is better.
Yeah,
mixed is better.
Maybe mixed, Soumyada. Yeah.
अच्छा, ठीक है. मैं mix करूँगा and I'll speak English and but also Hindi and sometime I'll switch as much as I can keep switching. ठीक है? तो सबको जिंदाबाद. अभी आज पहला दिन है COP का, लेकिन first day even the COP organization is not ready. As you can see, I'm sweating because the AC is still not working. There was a power cut for last 20 minutes and a lot of stalls are empty and woodwork is still going on. So, and being in the Amazon, it's normally hot and humid. The humidity level is 70% plus generally throughout. And this is, अभी तो इनका summer season शुरू होने जा रहा है and this is equator से 1 point some degrees south में है. तो दक्षिण हेमिस्फीयर, southern hemisphere का even this is a beginning of the summer season. तो सब लेके लेकिन let me come back to the core issues of this COP, particularly COP-30. As most of you probably know, that COP process, the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, जो अर्थ समिट से 3 ग्लोबल एनवायरमेंटल एग्रीमेंट निकाला था, उसमें वन ऑफ देम इज क्लाइमेट चेंज एग्रीमेंट। दूसरा था बायोडाइवर्सिटी का यूएनसीबीडी, यूनाइटेड नेशन कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी, और तीसरा है यूनाइटेड नेशन कन्वेंशन ऑन कॉम्बैटिंग डेजर्टिफिकेशन। तो वो दोनों में बायोडाइवर्सिटी लेके भी चर्चा होते हैं, उसमें काफी कॉमनैलिटी है तीनों में, लेकिन सबसे ज्यादा चर्चा, सबसे ज्यादा अटेंशन, सबसे ज्यादा पॉलिटिकल negotiation is around the UNFCCC, that is the climate COP. And 95 was the first climate COP in Berlin. So this is the 30th. In between 2020, there was no COP. So that scheduled COP was in 21 in Glasgow. So let me come down to quickly to COP-30 directly. What are the main issues that are being discussed, negotiated very hard here? क्या क्या ग्रुपिंग है, कंट्री ग्रुपिंग है, किस किस कंट्री ग्रुपिंग का क्या पोजीशनिंग है, ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स इसके ऊपर बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है. इफ यू हैव फॉलोड द मीडिया, द ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स अराउंड द क्लाइमेट नेगोशिएशंस एंड द क्लाइमेट एक्शन इज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग, बिकॉज द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी ऑल्सो इज वेरी इंटीग्रेटेड विद द क्लाइमेट एक्शन. क्योंकि सब जानते हैं कि क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो अभी जो मैन मेड बाय ह्यूमन मेड, नॉट मैन मेड, ह्यूमन मेड क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो हम बात करते हैं, तो जो बेसिकली कैपिटलिस्टिक ओवर एक्सट्रैक्शन, ओवर बर्निंग फॉसिल फ्यूल का बात करते हैं, उसके साथ कॉर्पोरेट इंटरेस्ट, पर्टिकुलरली फॉसिल फ्यूल कॉर्पोरेट्स, सेकेंडरी अपस्ट्रीम डाउनस्ट्रीम, इंक्लूडिंग डाउनस्ट्रीम में जो प्लास्टिक्स इंडस्ट्री है, एवरीथिंग इज वेरी स्ट्रांगली कनेक्टेड. So politics and economic negotiation, power of money plays a huge part in the climate negotiations. And आप सब जानते होंगे ये हर कॉप में आजकल सिविल सोसाइटी फ्रंट लेके, इंडस्ट्री प्रोमोटेड सिविल सोसाइटी फ्रंट, द इंडस्ट्री एसोसिएशन, ये काफी ग्रुप आते हैं, करीब 1200 से 1500 लोग. उनका नेगोशिएटर के साथ बात करना, बड़ा बड़ा होटल में पार्टी देना, उनके साथ मीटिंग रखना, ये चलते रहते हैं टू इन्फ्लुएंस द नेगोशिएटिंग पॉइंट्स. But let me come back to the 5 or 6 main negotiating points for this COP-30 in Belém, Brazil. And one of the most important, which is irrespective of this COP or other, but in this COP this has also been highlighted, is the last few years the global stock taking took place. The global stock take is how much we have committed through our NDCs. We means not people, but the government. पूरी दुनिया का जो 198 कंट्रीज का जो गवर्नमेंट है, वो यूएनएफसीसीसी का मेंबर है. तो ऑलमोस्ट एवरी कंट्री गवर्नमेंट एक प्लान सबमिट किया है यूएनएफसीसीसी को कि व्हाट दे विल डू एज देयर क्लाइमेट एक्शन टिल द नेक्स्ट 5 years लाइक दैट. तो पेरिस एग्रीमेंट 2015 में वहां पहले गया था कि फिर अभी ये जो 2025 है, क्योंकि पेरिस एग्रीमेंट से 10 साल बाद है, तो इसमें अपग्रेडेड एनडीसीज इज नेशनली डिटरमिन्ड कंट्रीब्यूशन. तो अपग्रेडेड एनडीसी सभी को जमा करना है इस COP-30 के आइदर पहले बट ड्यूरिंग द COP-30. तो काफी सारे देश ने किया है, काफी सारे देश ने नहीं किया. वन ऑफ द प्राइमरी नेगोशिएटिंग पॉइंट जिसके अराउंड बहुत जो हिंदी में बोलते हैं खींचातानी चल रहा है, बहुत ही पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक टसल्स आर गोइंग ऑन, is the upgradation of the ambition for emission reduction. इसको upgradation और emission, ambitious emission reduction. That means इसके पहले का NDC में जितनी emission reduction developed countries करेंगे बोले थे, but major developing countries also committed to a net zero in Glasgow, then in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, and then in Dubai. Like if you remember, India has committed to net zero by 2070. And that was, if I remember correctly, in Sharm el Sheikh at Dubai, COP29. Sorry, COP28, not 29. 29 was in Baku. So, सभी कंट्री कितनी अपग्रेड करेंगे अपना प्लान को, और ज्यादा क्लाइमेट एक्शन करने के लिए कितनी ज्यादा अपने एमिशन को कम करेंगे, कितनी फास्ट टाइमलाइन को आगे लाना है, emission reduction amount they have to cut down. So that is one of the major agendas based on global stock take. The second major agenda is actually on the finance. In fact, developing countries, a very large part of the developing countries, very keen, very focused on finance. Actually, they are focused more strongly on finance than on mitigation. And if you am sitting in the Rwanda pavilion, you can see the forest type scenario they have created, and maybe you can see the Rwanda also. So I took their permission. So the African countries, but specifically, they are actually pushing harder and harder for actual climate finance to be delivered on mitigation, on adaptation, on loss and damage, on three aspects. And आप जानते होंगे ये मिटिगेशन का मतलब है जो रूट कॉज है, जो एमिशंस जो हो रहा है फ्रॉम फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, फ्रॉम इंडस्ट्री, फ्रॉम सीमेंट, फ्रॉम डिफॉरेस्टेशन, फ्रॉम गार्बेज बर्निंग, ये सारे जो एमिशंस है फ्रॉम ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इज फॉर फॉसिल फ्यूल बर्निंग, ये सारे को जो है इलेक्ट्रिसिटी प्रोडक्शन स्टिल इज द बिगेस्ट, इनको से कम करना है. दैट इज कॉल्ड मिटिगेशन. Adaptation funding is also a major agenda this year. So this year, a global adaptation program is supposed to be finalized. Adaptation, our countries, particularly countries like India, South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries, African countries, which India is a major emitter, but per person emission, India is still not very high, though the Indian upper class still emit a very high per person emission. But overall, India emission is around 2 tons per person. Whereas if you look at developed countries, it goes up to 10 tons, 15 tons per person. So that way, if you take India as an average, that is not a very major thing. But India, because it is the third biggest emitter as a country, because we are 147 crore people, 1.47 billion people. So even per person being small, it is a major emission. So India is being pressurized also to upgrade its NDC. Similarly, the developing countries, they are committing to emission reduction, but they are focusing more on adaptation and adaptation funding. Because adaptation funding is very, very small as of now, both from GCF, which is the main UNFCCC body, the Green Climate Fund, as well as from the Adaptation Fund, as well as from the specific fund, country-specific fund, like Indonesia has a specific fund, Forests has a fund. So all of these adaptation funding and a global adaptation program, this is one of the main negotiating points in this form. The third main negotiating point is, of course, as I said, what was last announced and started with a very small form, the new collective quantified goal, NCQG. If you recall, in 2009, which was Copenhagen COP, and which was incidentally my first COP, this is my 16th COP, 16th climate COP, plus 2 CBD and 1 CCD I have attended, participated. So this is my 16th climate COP. So 2009, in Copenhagen COP 15, it was first this $100 billion that अमीर देश जो है उनको गरीब देशों को सपोर्ट करेगा प्रति साल, और ये 2020 से शुरू होगा. ये पहला डिसीजन हुआ था. और नेक्स्ट ईयर कैनकुन में, I'm sorry, this hot and humid weather and cold thing has caused some problems. Anyway, तो ये जो कैनकुन में जो 2016 में हुआ था, 2010 में हुआ था COP 16, उसमें ये फाइनल हुआ था. द फर्स्ट डिसीजन, डिसीजन 1 COP 16, डिसीजन 1.3 COP 16, वो था जो $100 बिलियन 2020 से आएगा. तो 2024 में ये जो नया गोल बाकू में जो फाइनलाइज हुआ, जो दुबई में प्रपोज हुआ था, दैट वाज 300, ये जो $100 बिलियन प्रति साल अमीर देश गरीब देशों को देगा, बट नॉन एनेक्स कंट्रीज को देगा, नॉन डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज, बट डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज, पुअर कंट्रीज को देगा. इसको 100 बिलियन से 300 बिलियन करना है. बट द कैविएट वाज दिस इंक्रीज इन फ्रॉम 100 बिलियन पर ईयर to 300 billion per year will be done from 2035. So they have introduced this. So none of the developing countries are happy because by 2035, the value of that money will be very low. Today's 300 billion and 300 billion by 2035 will be around half the money. So it's basically not an increase. So uske chalte, there is a new thing being proposed, and this COP will be taking up as a major negotiation, which is called Baku to Belém Roadmap to increase funding. Its name is that Baku to Belém Roadmap for getting this funding up to $1.3 trillion. I am reminding the present commitment by developed countries is $300 billion per year or $100 billion per year now, $300 billion per year from 2035, starting from 2035. But this Baku to Belém roadmap is pushing to increase this to $1.3 trillion per year, because even the UNFCCC negotiation, estimates have shown the present day requirement minimum for both mitigation and adaptation is $1.3 trillion every year. So the actual commitment or pledges is very low compared to that. So that is the another major negotiating point, Baku to Belém roadmap for increasing the new collective quantified goal. The fourth major point is a gender action plan. And I think this is a new introduction. This was being discussed for some years. But as you know, we always talk about gender being a very important lens to look at climate crisis. But as of now, every segment, they had some small insertions on gender. But this year, a major gender action plan as part of the climate action plans, all things. So this is being pushed. So that will be one more negotiation, and many of the women's groups are actually pushing hard, and they are having discussions with these negotiators in multiple forums. Like we have discussions with negotiators. I do a lot of discussion on carbon market, on mitigation possibilities, then justice, just transition. I do discussion with some negotiators, but women's groups are taking a lead in discussing with many negotiating groups, countries, and groupings on the gender action plan. Sorry. So when I talk about groupings, let me also tell you who are the major country groupings in the climate negotiation. The largest grouping is called G77 plus China. This is not 77 countries. It started as G77, group of 77 countries. China joined, but now it is a group of more than 140 countries plus China. Why China is separate? China was not formally part of it, but China being the largest emitter, China being the second largest economy, and by purchase power parity, China is the biggest economy. China dominates a lot of negotiations and issues. And I think I'll remind Shujai that the visuals that I sent should be also shown in between. Okay. So that will also break the monotony, maybe my speaking and my face being shown continuously. So those visuals I sent from the COP this morning. So that is the fifth major discussion, the gender action plan. The sixth major point, because this COP is in the Amazon, and this happened because of the stubbornness of the Brazilian presidency. Presidency is not Lula, but Brazil as a country is the host. So the COP presidency goes to the host country. Generally, the environment minister of the country, they have visuals the screen size you can increase, that will be good. The host country gets the presidency, and they get to actually dictate a lot of the agenda. Many of the meetings, and when I say many of the meetings, parallelly, there are at least 30 to 40 parallel official UN meetings where the negotiators from the countries, which are called parties, the 198 countries, the country governments have sent them. We are not country government parties. Ours is observers. So we are observers. We are allowed to go in and listen. But in the negotiation rooms, we are not allowed to speak. But we have many other events where we speak. That I will be speaking in 3 events tomorrow. So these countries are now clearly saying that what I was saying, the sixth point is that you have to bring in this in a way that as of now, most COPs have adopted a lot of plans. Some has gone into the official text, some have not gotten the text, but actual action has not followed what has been told or adopted in the text. So as Minalini told in the in the introduction, that Brazilian presidency is also clearly saying this should be an implementation COP, not basically very many new things will be announced, but whatever has been decided, whatever has been programs have been adopted, we'll have to see how these programs will be implemented, who is going to fund that, how the funding will be coming. So all of this will be a major focus. That's why they are calling it an adaptation COP. The sixth major area of negotiation, sixth or seventh, I forgot, maybe the seventh major area of negotiation. So because
Sixth,
this is in the Amazon, okay, whatever, sixth or seventh, I forgot. So because this is being held in the Amazon, the Brazilian presidency pushed to make forest and stopping deforestation. As you know, Amazon deforestation is a major issue. Congo Basin deforestation is a major issue. Tropical forests are the largest tropical forest exists in 3 or 4 pockets. One is the Amazon, which is Latin America, South America. Second is Africa's Congo Basin. Third is Indonesia and Malaysia. These 3 are the biggest. Indonesia, Malaysia, Congo Basin and neighboring areas, and the Amazon areas. Rest are other smaller patches, and these are the major areas. Congo Basin, I think, the second largest tropical rainforest. So one of the primary negotiation issues this year is stopping deforestation, using money to compensate countries, poor countries, who have large forests, who are not able to protect or are not protecting with the argument that we need our development, and the forest resources, including wood, is our major resource for us. So there are funds created. So Brazilian government, just before this official COP started, in the high-level meeting, which was attended by around 50 different ministers from different countries, 50 different countries, Brazilian presidency and this group together, they announced the TFFF, the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. If you recollect what happened in Glasgow, and I gave this update from Glasgow also, in Glasgow, there was a global deforestation pledge adopted with a funding of $19 billion. Much before that, I think if I remember correctly, in 2014, there was this big deforestation conference in New York, and some funds were pledged, but nothing came out of that. But the Glasgow Global Deforestation Pledge, some action has happened, but it's very little action compared to what is needed. Deforestation still is continuing. So in this COP, the Brazilian government, Brazilian presidency, I'll not say the government, the presidency, they are pushing very hard for making deforestation, stopping deforestation, that means forests, land use change, and what is called nature-based solution. That means you do something on nature, which will tackle the climate change problem. There are a lot of problems in this. Also in the forest issues, I'll just quickly, if we have time, I'll connect. Because even if we know very well, deforestation is not responsible for more than 10 to 12% of the climate threatening emission. The rest is from fossil fuels. The rest is from fossil fuel and land use change. But deforestation do play a role, which is between 10 to 12, 13%. So it is important to stop deforestation, but completely focusing on forest and deforestation, land use change, and nature-based solution has its dangers. I am just giving this pointer, not challenging this as a method. This is a good method, but we must not focus very strongly on that. And by that, not forget about the cutting down emission from fossil fuels. So this is a major area. This is the sixth major area of negotiation. So when I was talking about contributing, As I said, the largest group is G77 plus China. दूसरा जो बड़ा ग्रुप है वो है अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज ग्रुप. अफ्रीका में आप जानते हैं 54 कंट्रीज है, and African Union plus African country grouping as they play a sort of unified role, unified voice. The third grouping is IOSIS, which is not very big by population. That is the alliance of small island states. These are all टापू का देश है जिनको पास खतरा सबसे ज्यादा है. इसमें काफी सारे देश आप जानते हैं, मालदीव्स है, टुवालू है, सोलोमन आइलैंड्स है, नाउरू है, बहुत सारे देश डूब जाएगा. मतलब देश का अस्तित्व खत्म हो जाएगा. जहां बहुत बड़ा पहाड़ बा नहीं है, जहां वेरी लो लाइंग कंट्रीज है, जैसे मालदीव्स हमारा जस्ट साउथ वेस्ट नहीं है, तो ऐसे देशों का ग्रुपिंग है. दिस इज कॉल्ड आईओसिस, अलायंस ऑफ स्मॉल आइलैंड स्टेट्स. द फोर्थ मेजर ग्रुपिंग इज of the rich countries, which is called an umbrella group. Yeah, earlier it used to be different, but now it is called an umbrella group. And they continuously create problems in trying to adopt a positive climate agenda. And, US plays a major role in the umbrella group. And as all of you know, once Trump came in, he announced so that US will again withdraw from the Paris Agreement. And that withdrawal will be effective from January 2026. So we don't know what role the umbrella group will be playing this year, but they are very much against, though the European Union is part of umbrella group, but European Union, EU, plays a very different role. EU is one of the strongest voices of emission cuts. They have actually cut their emissions as European Union quite significantly. And they have accepted, as EU, quite progressive goals. They have accepted 45% reduction by, I think, 2035. That is, maybe by 2030, from 2005 baseline. 40% emission cut by 2030, which is just 5 years ago. So it's a very ambitious, and 70%, I think, by 2040. So this kind of ambitious goal EU has taken, but EU is also part of the rich countries group. So there are conflicting roles. The other major role that is used to be played, China plays a very important role, even as country. It plays a role as G77 plus China, but China was also member of different other small groups, which has important influences. So this needs to be, India unfortunately don't play a major role anymore, though there is possibility, because a lot of smaller countries now look at India as a stumbling block, as a roadblock, because every time they see the the strongest voices for fast and large emission cut comes from two blocks. One is the IOSIS, the Alliance of Small Island States, the टापू का देशों का जो संघ है, करीब 40-45 देश है, जिनके सामने खतरा ज्यादा है. The African countries grouping do not push so hard on emission cuts, but push hard for climate finance. But India and a few countries like that, हमारा पीछे कुछ सालों से जो रोल है वो है नहीं, ये नहीं करना चाहिए. जैसे मैं यदि बताऊं, जब ग्लासगो में ग्लोबल डिफॉरेस्टेशन प्लेज अडॉप्ट किया गया to stop deforestation completely by 2030, India didn't sign on to it. India said, no, it's not acceptable. It gave some different reasons. India didn't sign on to the global deforestation pledge. India didn't sign on to the global methane pledge. Global methane pledge is a very important thing, because methane, though the emission amount is small, in the shorter run, which is extremely important for climate crisis, methane is around 85 times as powerful as carbon dioxide for creating global warming. So यदि हम मीथेन को कम कर सकते हैं जल्दी से, जो संभव है, तो क्लाइमेट क्राइसिस में एक्ट करने का थोड़ा टाइम मिल जाए, हमें ब्रीदिंग टाइम मिल जाए, जो अभी बहुत कम है. लेकिन इंडिया even didn't sign on to the global methane pledge. So methane pledge was 30% reduction by 2030 in methane emission. So many of these, even when this year, just a few days ago, TFFF was launched, the Tropical Forest Forever Facility. इसका मतलब ये है, दुनिया में जहां भी ट्रॉपिकल फॉरेस्ट है, क्योंकि ट्रॉपिकल फॉरेस्ट आर द बिगेस्ट स्टोर ऑफ कार्बन, बिगेस्ट कार्बन सिंक, also biggest source of biodiversity, along with some others. So when this was launched, India didn't join. But recently, India said we'll be joining as an observer, not commit to this, but we'll be joining as an observer. बहुत क्लियर है, यदि मोटा पैसा आएगा इससे तो इंडिया बोलेगा हम ज्वाइन करेंगे, हमें पैसा दो. यदि देखेंगे जो बहुत मोटा पैसा नहीं आए तो ज्वाइन नहीं करेंगे. यहाँ मेरे एक चीज क्लियर कर दूं, ये जो बहुत पहले से ये जो फॉरेस्ट बचाने से पैसा मिलेगा, there was another scheme launched in 2016 or even before, which is called RED, Reduction of Emission through Deforestation and Forest Degradation, REDD, which was modified later to RED Plus. So for forest densification, that plus was added. Out of that, wherever pilot scale projects have happened, indigenous people's group, forest people's group have got dispossessed. Their access to forest resources have got cut down, and these forest areas have got in the control of either the governments or the corporates, etc., who made money. So there is a caveat with which we should support deforestation pledges like this, that this must not happen at the expense of forest communities, indigenous communities. So these are the 6-7 major areas are under negotiation. Today is the first day. अभी भी negotiation का just कुछ शुरू हुआ है. In the official Baki area, I am talking from the official UN Blue Zone. So if the questions and others are there, I'll be happy to answer.
Soumya, I didn't want to interrupt you, but we just like, just perfect, like half an hour was. Please, Soumya, please take a break and drink some water also. Jab tak, we can open up the discussion as well.
Any questions, sir?
Also, if Sujay and while Soumya is also taking a bit of a breather, if Mrinalini, you or Sujay can share the photos, we have that. Soumya sent us some photos from COP. Unfortunately, I'm on my phone. My laptop's not working, so I'm not able to share. But maybe we can just also see what the hall is looking like.
Yes, that was supposed to be shared, photos and videos, when I was speaking.
Sujay,
I am also joining from my mobile. Didn't bring in today first day.
Okay, I'll just try to do it.
Questions? Any clarificatory or other connected questions or other points?
थैंक यू. श्रीपाद जी ने हाथ उठाया है, तो या आप अनम्यूट करके श्रीपाद जी प्लीज. हाँ जी.
You are mute. Please unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Sripad.
Yeah. So, Soumya, first of all, of course, thank you for this very detailed, but at the same time, capturing all the key points of this event. Very useful. My question was, you talked about these two pledges of $100 billion per year and $300 billion per year and all that. So these pledges are there, but what has been the actual amount which has been given, or what people have actually received, the countries have received? If you can comment a bit on that. Thank you.
Any other question? I can take two and then start answering. Okay, Swasta, I have noted. So let me start with the first. See, the question is, there are multiple different figures given by different parties. When we ask the developed countries, like the Annex 1 countries, particularly the Annex 1 countries almost perfectly overlap with OECD. So the OECD countries say, we have been given, except the last 2 years, we have been given around $70 to $90 billion per year as climate finance. The problem is, many of these are actually for different projects which were committed earlier. They have a climate overlap. Like if you are giving a country an assistance, a development assistance for a watershed project, you can call it a climate project. but this was already committed as a watershed project assistance as part of ODA, Official Development Assistance. As all of you probably know, that 0.7% of the GDP of developed countries or rich countries should be given. That was one point of time adopted. No one rejected that completely. That this will be going as an ODA to poor countries for them to develop. So this accounting mismatch, when Oxfam started analyzing this a few years ago, they found, again, leaving apart last 2 years, mostly last year, that actual new and additional funding, apart from others linked somehow to other pledges, earlier schemes, programs, is actually $30 to $40 billion per year, which is sorry, which is abysmally low. Because if I put a figure like the 2022 Pakistan floods cost Pakistan around $16 billion. That was their estimate. Even our 2013 Uttarakhand disaster cost us anything between $9 to $12 billion. So this total of $30 to $40 billion for the entire poor country world for the entire year is almost nothing. But the accounting is actually very different from different groups. Though I must admit, a very large fund is now flowing in mitigation. Every year, mitigation gets something like $300 to $400 billion. Last 2 years, it has even increased because mitigation projects, big solar farms, going to some companies and through intermediary financiers, like Canara Bank received a $450 million funding as an intermediary. Canara Bank will be funding in India solar projects. For that, they received $450 million from these funders. So this kind of mitigation project funding, which can also be climate funding, is very fuzzy accounting, which has reached hundreds of billions of dollars. But that was not the idea. The idea was developing countries, particularly poorer countries, will receive mostly either interest-free, preferably grant by interest-free loans from developed countries, because based on their historical responsibility of higher emission, of creating the crisis. And this will be mostly public funding. That has not happened. Today, public funding accounts for roughly 25 to 30%. Private funding is actually coming in more. And as we all know, private funding will not be given as grants. Private funding will be looking for profit-making opportunities or resource grabbing. So a very large part of the so-called climate finance is today coming through private funding in the guise of climate finance, but they are actually grabbing resources or dispossessing people in developing countries. So this is a major challenge. But what I gave, the 100 billion, 300 billion, are figures given in the COP. And what I am now saying, the actual assessments are by different groups. Even the EU admitted that till the last 2 years, the total funding, except the project funding for mitigation, never exceeded $85 billion. Only in the last 2 years, they are claiming it has exceeded $100 billion. And Shwastai's question was, would you explain the concept? Oh, the reason. See, for not signing to the two pledges adopted in Glasgow, one is the Global Deforestation Pledge. India, you can see the government is very tricky. They said that we are not signing this because that pledge also mentioned trade in forest product. Note this, trade in forest product. We all know India imports large quantities of timber, cutting down huge trees from Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as maybe Bhutan and other places. So India raised an objection that since the clause of trade in forest products is there, will not sign it. But reason, obviously, if there was more money, India probably, and not detrimental to India's interest. So that was the reason. But the global methane pledge, India gave a very funny reason. Now they are doing so many waste to energy projects, which are again creating a disaster. But they gave a sort of a reason that if we adopt the methane pledge, then it will impact our agriculture. because as we know, agriculture, both from flooded rice fields as well from the cattle, there is a significant, not very large, but significant methane emission. So India's reason for not signing the methane pledge, that it will impact our agricultural production. And our farmers are small. They are not able to cope with any other sort of controls. So we will not sign this. In often, what the country says and what are the underlying reasons might not be exactly the same. Any other questions? Anyone?
और कोई भी अगर कुछ भी, even since this is just the first time जो हम लोग कर रहे हैं, so even if there's something which Soumya Da can look for in the upcoming sessions and then share with us. So even if any of the participants, आप लोगों के पास, if there is something which you all would want to find out from the COP, and if it's possible, then Soumya Da, since he's there for us over there, so he can maybe do that bit and then of course share with us again. So like I for one I'm quite excited कि ये जो पूरा gender action plan like you shared Soumya Da, it's something which has always been spoken about in all climate forums and any conversation about the environment. मगर अभी आप बोल रहे हैं कि something more concrete they have said is going to happen in this COP. So personally I would
Yes.
also look forward to listen from you next time कि क्या हो पाया.
This COP is the first one which has officially proposed a complete gender action plan in that arena of climate action. And it is already some work has gone on, because as you know, that the COP proper is not the only forum where discussions go on. There are intersessionals. Two generally intersessional happen. From the last COP in Baku to this COP, two different large meetings have happened, where a lot of negotiators converge, bureaucrats, mostly bureaucrats who handle these issues, and civil society also. So the gender action plan is being worked on, but as of now, it's not very concrete. So this COP will be, at least that's the goal, that a gender action plan will be launched. Along with, which is very important for, as I said, for a lot of developing countries, is that climate finance, the Baku to Belém roadmap. Because no developing country is happy with this major amount of 300 billion by 2030. So finance is one of the things, because a lot of poor countries are very clearly saying, we have launched our program. Like India, though as a whole economy is not poor, but if you look at the population and per capita income, it is a poor country. No, it's just gone above poverty, the poor country, to low middle income country. As of now, as of the World Bank definition, India is a low middle income country now, with around $2,800 per person per year. So that is actually, and if you take out the top 10% of India, it goes below $1,200, which is lower than sub-Saharan countries. So 90% of Indians live at below sub-Saharan standards. That's the official figure. So India is also saying that we have launched a lot of climate action, which is not completely untrue. See, India has, though we are not happy, India as official government agency, Indian government, they have launched a very ambitious renewable energy program. They have launched a very effective enhancement of energy efficiency mission. Only thing, their other mission, the Green India mission, has not gone ahead much. And there are also a lot of, as I said, lot of conflicts, because in our country, like in Bangladesh also and similar Nepal, lot of people live in the forest. So forests are not just greenery. Lot of villages, lot of habitations. So when we talk about forest deforestation pledge, the people angle had to be very clearly kept in mind. So this is why India is also claiming that we should also get money. Not much chance of that, India getting major money in this. India is getting a major money in terms of mitigation finance. That is those big solar and wind projects and some electrification of transportation projects. And India has got some adaptation projects from GCF. I have visited some of the sites also where they are doing. It's not
So,
bad. So
uh,
please, any other question?
हाँ जी,
Related question.
सुहास जी आप sorry, your hand was up. सुहास जी,
Yeah.
हाँ.
Thanks, Mrinalini. Soumya, I was just wondering whether there is any discussion about the health impacts and any discussions on how to do any mitigation or sort of planning to compensate for the health. You yourself are suffering so much on while talking also in that weather.
See, health is always one of the action agenda. See, when we talk about climate action plan, adaptation plan, health is not a separate agenda issue. It's not like the adaptation plans, like the mitigation plan, like the deforestation plan. That way, health is not a major negotiating point. Health is part of the adaptation issue. Because as it is changing, how do you ensure people's health is not impacted badly or severely? So health is always discussed. There are different plans, different proposals. In fact, WHO came out with climate change and health publications, and there are a lot of programs here on health, climate and health. So this is part of the adaptation issue. And as I was saying, you can see the large crowd. No other pavilion has this much crowd except the China pavilion on day one morning. So you can guess the influence that China plays. And again, India plays very, very little role. Unfortunately, India was at one point of time, if I remember, 2009, 10, 11, COP 15, 16, 17, 18, India had a leadership role in the developing country blocks. G7 President Australia. Unfortunately, because of bad policies, India completely lost the game, and a lot of developing countries, poorest countries, today actually blame India as a deal breaker, as a spoil sport, as a roadblock.
हाँ,
More
Yash,
questions?
please. हाँ, Yash.
Hello, Soumya ji. I joined a little late, so I don't know if this was spoken. I have two questions. Firstly, is there anything related to youth and children in this COP, any session or any participation? And secondly, how do you see the civil society engagement at COP? How is it, and are there any protests or not?
Okay, fine. The second question is right now happening. The first question is also very well known. The UN FCCC, like UN, has 9 recognized constituencies. These constituencies are farmers' constituency, women's constituency, indigenous people's constituency, youth constituency. Then there are several other constituencies. So youth, children, it's not called children, it's called youth. So youth is a recognized constituency. Youth has a place in putting their voice in most UN negotiation. As I said earlier, we are not there. The official negotiation, we cannot raise our voice. We cannot speak. We can only go and listen and note down. We cannot take even a video. They are only the country groupings, country representatives speak. But all other forums, the youth groups are also given a major role. Many of the civil society groups, as well as many country groups, they also meet the youth group representatives and talk. Second is, which is very important point, the last 3 COPs, as most of you probably know, were basically in petro-states and police states. So COP 27 was in Egypt. Egypt is ruled by a dictator, whereby for protesting you can disappear. Next COP was in in Dubai. Dubai is a petro-state. No protest was allowed. No protest was allowed outside in Egypt also. And Egypt also is a petro-state, heavily dependent on petroleum. So they scuttled all the fossil fuel phase-out proposals. Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Dubai is not the country. United Arab Emirates. They are one of the major petro-states. There also you don't have any freedom. So we were officially told the protest is not allowed. Even showing a Palestine flag is not allowed. Though we broke those rules sometime, but not very frequently. Very few open protests happened. Next was in Baku, again a petro-state. again ruled by authoritarian government. So no protests were allowed. Large protests were allowed inside or outside. Though we did inside, which was a sterile event. This year, there is a major change. A lot of civil society protests were happening. In fact, when I was coming in, I thought I'll do a small video. But since I had to come in a huge queue, the first day queue for registration and security is huge. So I quickly came in. There are protests happening just, I think, 20 minutes ago. You could hear some slogan shouting in the background. Some civil society groups are protesting. Civil society groups this year's COP, they have a large space, multiple spaces, and just at the entry of the COP gate, there are protests continuously from around 8 o'clock in the morning to around 8 in the evening. Protests, things go on. But beyond that, many country groupings are also a little more open, and the present presidency is a little more open to civil society presentations this year. That's a major change from the last 3 years, because we had a major public protest in Glasgow in 21. In fact, if anybody has seen that, I did a live podcast from the protest for 1 hour almost. In that rain and snow, in freezing temperatures, more than 1 lakh people participated in the protest, in the climate march, for hours together. After that, it didn't happen. This year, again, it will be happening on the 15th. And this year, again, after Glasgow, there is a People's Summit, which is happening parallel to this official summit. Now I am sitting in the official blue zone, where you need the UN accreditation. You have to be accredited with UN for these batches. But in the People's Summit, you don't need to be accredited. A lot of civil society groups have come. People's movements have come. Indigenous groups have come. They will be having events. I will be having one meeting there on 12th, 3 here on 11th. So these positive changes have happened this year.
Thank you,
Anything
Soumya.
else?
As you said that there were like protests and slogans. So what are their demands? Like what are they saying?
Lot of demands have to be, see, as I said, at any given time, there are 20 such civil society things happen. One, every year it happens from African route, don't gash Africa, because they're in the name of oil and gas exploration. Many African countries are being devastated. The other is the basically upgrade the ambition, because without cutting down emissions sharply, no amount of adaptation and other thing will be sufficient. So, and as I said, any given time, there are 10 to 20 different protests going on. And not only protests, civil society events are also happening. Like one of the events that for the last 7-8 years, I am very deeply involved in, I speak in every year, is what are the mechanisms to phase out fossil fuels? How to preserve the forest under which fossil fuels also are there, like Hasdeo. Hasdeo is not only a forest. Under Hasdeo, there is a huge stock of coal. The rough estimate is around 4 billion tons of coal. So it's a fight not only for saving the trees and forests, but also for not extracting. Shatarupa's question is what? Let me check.
Should I read it? From an official Indian position, what would be considered a successful COP-30? And also then I think how are the climate action plans being seen in relation to domestically the climate action that the government is engaging in?
See, one point that I missed mentioning is that if I remember correctly, I think it was in Dubai, there was a proposal which was adopted, and finally in Baku, that was officially stamped, is that globally the installed renewable energy capacity will be tripled. Earlier it was supposed to be doubled by 2030. But the countries agreed that the global installed renewable energy capacity will be tripled, made 3 times as much by 2030, which is a very, very ambitious goal. The idea is if you installed a huge amount of renewable energy, in most countries, that will reduce the coal, oil, gas use for energy, because you are getting a large amount of energy from wind. One of the yardstick that India uses is how much renewable energy capacity, electricity capacity, it has been able to install. And for that, it is asking funding also. India's yardstick, primary yardstick, is that this many gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. Like 2 years ago, India upgraded its ambition. Earlier, it was 400 gigawatt by 2030. Now, the Indian goal is 500 gigawatt of installed non-fossil power capacity, non-fossil fuel power capacity by 2030, which in itself is an ambitious goal. So that is India's target. From India's point of view, if that gets support from other developed countries as funding, then India considered this as a successful thing. Beyond that, India plays a very sort of, what should I say, a little dubious role, because India strongly opposed the fossil fuel phase out clause in Glasgow and then in Sharm el Sheikh. But India next year proposed all fossil fuel phase out, knowing very well, India opposed the coal phase out clause. Phase out coal, because coal is the most carbon emission, most polluting energy source, fossil fuel source. But India floated an idea, knowing that no country at this point will support complete phase out of all fossil fuels. So India plays a very dubious role. But in reality, India's primary targets are around non-fossil energy, which is basically renewable energy, nuclear power plants, and big total hydropower plant capacity. So these three are India's yardsticks internally if you talk about Indian government and Indian negotiations.
I think Raviji had a small doubt, Soumyada, when we are talking about tripling the target, then from which base year? I'm
It
not
was, I think, 2005 or 10. I don't remember exactly.
okay.
Basically, the targets are from 2005. Sorry, 10. Probably renewable energy was from 2010. We'll have to check it once more.
Sure, we can do that, right?
But that
We
target was doubling. It was upgraded to tripling.
right. Okay. We have another question in the chat box by Kasturi. We can take that first, and then Titli, we can take yours. So if you could just hold on.
Yes.
Kasturi is asking that is there any talk about things like degrowth apart from economic resilience, and how to maintain growth with alternative renewable energy?
See, the first question is easy to answer. There is no official negotiation part on degrowth. No country in the world, no country, I'm saying, as a government party, is talking about degrowth. Most of the major groups here are also not talking about degrowth. But within the official COP also, as well as in the People's Summit, there are events happening on degrowth, but these are basically by civil society organizations. And the second part is, I will need more time to explain. And I have, in the last message webinar on energy, I have detailed it out to some extent. How can growth still be possible with renewable energy, with non-fossil energy, with a just transition?
Yes.
That I have explained in the last, and the recording is available.
Yes. Okay. So Kasturi, you can also look that up if possible. Then we have Titli. Titli, if you could please unmute and ask a question. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Soumyada. I'm Rinaldi. Thank you for organizing this. My question was, since most of the country's targets, especially India, is so focused on just that energy transition, because it also seems to be the energy transition is becoming a profitable industry in many ways. Is there that nuance where we're talking about at COP, we're talking about hydro not being a just way to transition to clean energy? And what is clean energy? Are those nuanced discussions happening? And apart from that, just the pure electrification transition, with India has also seen a lot of land use change from agriculture towards solar farms and things like that. Are those coming into the conversation, or is it purely if we go from these many megawatts to these many megawatts, it's a success irrespective of everything else? So just wanted to know, understand how India is thinking and whether that's coming up in discussion.
Okay, fine. Again, this question partly I tackled in that energy transition webinar, but let me also explain because this is an important question. Again, not only the countries officially in the official negotiation, but a very large part of civil society is also not talking about these issues very clear. For them also, like if you look at Greenpeace, even Friends of the Earth is talking about this, but Greenpeace, Nature Defense Fund, many others, their primary focus in, even while coming to the COP this morning, I was with a representative of this European green industry, some big group, which are trying to change over the materials which emit energy, not only the energy production, because the material production also consumes a lot, like the building material, construction material. Even those groups, even many big civil society groups, are fixated on just energy, not just energy transition, but just the energy transition, which we call fuel switching. There are now discussions happening within, but they all say the same thing. Even today morning, I had the same discussion. A very good friend who are very dedicated activists, European, German groups, US groups, Netherlands groups, all of them said, yes, we understand, but there is no time. So we have to do it rapidly. And for that, So I have this argument, every morning I was having this argument, that we cannot allow this excuse to, again, intensify the disposition, the injustice that has happened with the lowest people, the lowest rung people who are facing the climate. So it's a double injustice. Once we are facing the climate impact the most. Second, in the name of the solution, you are again victimizing. So this is an ongoing discussion in a smaller scale. This happened in some of the civil society groups, but in the mainstream, this is not really a discussion. It's fixated on transition, which means fuel switch, but also in agriculture. There a few years ago, there was a large international dialogue as part of the negotiation, which was called Koroleva Dialogues. At that point of time, because I was in the advisory board of the UN Climate Technology Center, I was also part of that. So after that, I have not followed it up. You can look at the Koroleva dialogues. So those are for agriculture. So many of these are discussed. But the justice part, the way we, civil society in South Asia, look at it, or major part, even in South Asia, there are very many groups who do not look at it that deep. So this is a subdued discussion. This do happen. This gets raised, but this is subdued. This always they try to suppress it by saying it's so urgent to immediately transition. That's true. I'm not denying that. Transitioning away from fossil fuel is extremely urgent. Otherwise, no amount of adaptation will happen. But the question of doing it with justice, that is the way we want it to play a central role. We do not have it. Not even in civil society.
Thank you. And I think also if we just looked at it from a emission standpoint, I'm sure there's a case that can be made that with land use change and forests that are being inundated with this transition, that it is maybe not even worth it.
We need a larger discussion. In fact, there is also in so-called progressive civil society, there is some misconception. So we need a larger discussion. In fact, I started the discussion in the Just Transition webinar. But since it was also, Bhanuji was also part of this, so I got only 25-30 minutes. So this needs a longer discussion. The just transition, how it can happen, what are the methodologies that we can focus on. I have written about that. I have talked about that also in the India Energy Finance Conference, which used to happen with IIT Madras, CFA, and twice I talked about that. But we need a longer discussion. It's very involved discussion.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, Thank you, Soumyada. Thank you, Titri, for that question. So it's true. Actually, COP-30 also, it's like, it's a moment for us to even maybe reflect on the larger arguments which, we regularly otherwise keep happening. So it's also a space for that. Anyone else? If we have anyone else और किसी को भी अगर कुछ बोलना
से जरूर करना है, otherwise
yeah, I'm sure Soumyada also is a bit tired, of course.
more than
Suhas,
tired. I am using the Rwanda pavilion.
oh yes,
So I
this
have taken
night,
their permission, but they have now, after maybe 1 hour, they are also looking at me. But
yes,
I think I can still use 10 minutes, but not beyond.
yes, we should not
I'll have
take
to then shift to another.
Huh.
If there are questions, I'm happy to answer, but I'll have to shift just across. There's an empty space I can see.
Okay.
If there are more questions, I'll be happy to continue. I'll just have to shift around 20 yards, 20 meters, not much.
Okay. I don't think Suhas ji is saying if we can share the writings on myths, that definitely we can do through the WhatsApp groups, and so that can happen.
I have many write-ups, some big, some medium, some are 20, 30 pages, some are 3, 4 pages. So even for Friends of the Earth International, I did a big study. And for another group, I think I did something.
Right. तो ठीक है, if we do not have maybe other questions and doubts, Abhi, we can wrap up for today. Also,
Yes.
we would want to say that, as we mentioned pehle mein, ki this is like a warm-up session. We were lucky कि Soumya ji could give us थोड़ा सा time as soon as he reached. He's just reached also few hours back. So we will be trying to plan at least few more sessions while he is at the COP. And we will then share the webinar links if we are managing to organize a webinar. अगर वो भी नहीं कर पा रहे, there are short videos which Soumyada is being able to share with us. We will try to forward that as well in larger groups. And but definitely we will have follow-up sessions because we know now it's such an important COP too. So what happens, doesn't happen is something we will all want to be part of, we'll want to know. We will definitely plan for follow-up sessions about this. So ठीक है, then I think for today we can wrap up. Thank you everyone. सभी
Because
साथियों
for
को
me also, it was almost 40 hours travel without sleep and 3 flights. And in Miami, they gave me a news that your itinerary from Miami to Belém has been deleted. So you won't be able to travel. So I had to negotiate,
What is
get back 2 hours of so hectic things. And I arrived this morning at 4 o'clock. So my friend said, now go to sleep. But I said, no, I have to reach early.
You
Otherwise,
better
I will not
take
be.
care. So, Soumya,
I'll get back.
don't be too
I'll be getting back.
enthusiastic. Take care. Take sleep. Take
No,
care
I'll
of your health.
sleep
That
in
is
the
more
night.
important than anything.
Thank you, Soumyata. Take care. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks. See you, everyone.
ठीक है.
For next update, maybe we'll meet. For next update, maybe we'll meet around first week, after first week. Because in the first week, a lot of things happen. Then maybe